Hello everyone, my name is Roman Gray and this is my first YouTube video, and I would like to share my thoughts and feelings on the next Mass Effect. Okay, so let me just pull up what I want to say here. The first thing I would like to talk about is the character creation system. We all know from the first 3 Mass Effects that we got to pick our look and our gender of Commander Shepard, but I feel it will be more interesting to also pick the species of what we want our character to be. Like, I would love to see a playable Asari, Solarian. It'd be nice to see how a Geth would translate to the different play styles of Mass Effect. Turnians. So, yeah. And also pick their appearance, skin tone, their look as well. I think that would be most interesting. The next thing I want to talk about is the romance system. I'm not really so concerned about the choice system. I think that's done fairly well for the series. But for the romance system, I feel that there is favoritism towards the straight male and the female lesbian versus the straight female and the gay male. The amount of choices doesn't really matter to me, as long as it's fair and even. So I feel like a fairly good range of choices would be maybe 6 to 10 different choices, and have an even amount of male choices versus female choices, and just having them all be bisexual, so everyone would be open to all gender and sexuality types. I think that would be most practical and make more people happier with the romance option. I do realize this is not a major aspect of the game as a whole, but it's something that would be something BioWare could do to make the players a little happier. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the world of Mass Effect, as in the time frame the next game will be set in. I think the next Mass Effect should be a post-Shepard, as in Shepard has died for the last time, and now we're moving the story, moving the timeline forward to get a new hero into the mix. Excuse me. I feel like this new universe should be starting to rebuild, but not completely rebuilt yet. As in, yes, the most important places should be more constructed than the less important places, like colonies, outposts, small cities, whereas the capitals, the citadels, the mass relays should be all fixed and done. I'm not real sure how that time frame would work depending on the endings the players picked. But yeah, I feel like this game should be a post-Shepard game. A post-Shepard storyline, I should say. Then I think that was what point I wanted to make there. Then I wanted to talk about the ending and how it should relate to this next Mass Effect. I can't say I enjoyed the original ending of the third Mass Effect. It was pretty jumbled and pretty bad. But I did like the extended cuts of the Mass Effect ending. And I appreciate BioWare for doing extended cuts for the new endings. I feel like that should also relate to the world in some manner, but it's more or less little things added in details. As in, if players pick the destroyed ending, then there shouldn't be any Geth, Reapers, and synthetics AI similar to EDI around, because they just wouldn't be there, they're destroyed, they're gone. But if you pick the controlled or the synthesis ending, then they should be there because they would technically be still alive. Well, yeah, still alive, but serving different functions at that point. Because if you pick the control ending, then they're all controlled by Shepard's consciousness. If you pick the synthesis ending, then they're all technically alive. So if you pick either of those endings, you would expect to see Geth, AIs like EDI, and perhaps interact with those two types of AI and synthetics. But you wouldn't, and I don't feel it's important to interact with the Reapers too much. I feel like that's more of a background helping to reconstruct type of thing. Although one could make the argument that you could interact with the Reapers on a limited basis, as in for historical purposes. But the main purpose of that is to fully explain the Leviathans and the Protheans due to the Leviathans DSL arc and the Prothean DSL arc, and what we've basically heard about the Protheans throughout the 3 games. That's what that would be mainly for. But other than that, I feel like the Reapers should be more of a background thing. Then depending on which ending you picked, where the synthetics are alive, the control, or the synthesis. Excuse me, I can't say that very well. Then you should expect to see the blue light on the synthetics, or the green biocircuitry on everyone. And perhaps the green glowing eyes, which is kind of creepy. But anyway, that's not the point. So those textures should be there depending on if you pick the controlled or the sensitive ending. And just not be concerned with it if players pick the destroy ending. I don't feel like the refusal ending would be relevant, because then you would be telling the same old story as the Protheans, Shepherd, and the Leviathans. Excuse me. And basically you would be rehashing the same old story where this has already happened, we understand that it happened, and now it's time to move on with the timeline. And I feel that the refusal ending should just not be relevant to the upcoming Mass Effect story. Then I'll talk about that. Then I would like to discuss the hero of this next Mass Effect. We pretty much basically seen the hero of the Mass Effect universe, which would be Shepherd. And I'm not saying that another hero type character wouldn't be good, but we've already seen that to its fullest extent before. So I think more of an anti-hero, more darker character would be better in filling the place of this next Mass Effect. Yeah. And I also feel that the player should be more involved in the backstory of this hero, as in like how BioWare did Dragon Age. For each role set there was, not necessarily the species set because there was only dwarves, humans, and elves, but more along the lines of each role there would be. So as in, you have the Bionic, Soldier, Sentinel, and whatnot for Mass Effect, and you would have levels showcasing the backstory for each of those play styles, I should say. Yeah, I feel like that would be good because it makes the character more likable, and it gets the player more involved with the character. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say for the character. Well, I feel like it should be more like Jack. The character should be more Brooklyn, darker. Well, before she went to the school to teach the other Bionics military applications for their powers. That's how I feel that this character would be in the world he or she or it would be set in. And because if you're doing post-Shepherd in the early days of Reconstruction, then there should be more dark, seedy places of the world, well, of the galaxy rather than the world of the universe as a whole, because not everything's built yet. And back to normal. I believe that's all I want to say about the character. Hang on, let me get my next point up here. The characters of the first 3 Mass Effects is what I want to talk about now. I feel like they should be in the game, but they don't have to have major roles in the game. Like, I feel like Jack, Miranda, Liara, Garrus, Rex, Grunt, and Ashley and Kaidan, and Joker are important enough to make cameo appearances in the next Mass Effect. Oh, and I always forget to say Tali in that list as well. I feel like they are important enough to make it into this Mass Effect. Not necessarily have major roles, but have cameo roles. So, yeah, because it would make sense for the player to run into Rex and Tali because they're leaders in their races. Rex is the leader of his clan and Tali is on the Admiralty Board of the Quarians. It will also make sense for you to probably run into Garrus because he would probably be a leader of some sort at this point in time. And also Liara is now the Shadow Broker, so she would also be a very important figure to run into. As for the other characters I mentioned, I feel they were more important than the other characters that were in the game. Because if you think about it, you probably interacted with Miranda more than you did with Jacob in Mass Effect 2. And you interacted more with Joker. Oh, what else did I say? And Ash and Kaidan were in all three games. And Liara was in all 3 games. Joker was in all 3 games. And you probably felt, and players probably felt more empathy, more sympathy for Jack and what she was than any of the other characters. At least I did. So I feel like they are the more relevant characters to the series. I also feel like that it's not a problem to go back and make past stories for the Mass Effect series, but I feel like that should be left to a later date. As in, I would love to see Garrus's operations on Omega, Thane's family dynamic, and what he was doing prior to Mass Effect 2. I would also like to see what Legion was doing prior to Mass Effect 2. And the Krogan, I would like to see a game made for the Krogan Wars and the Rachni Wars. Yeah, I feel like those would be the most important stories and characters for this game and perhaps upcoming games of the series, besides Shepard, which we all know is dead and his storyline is over. I guess one could make the argument to see what Saren was doing before he got indoctrinated. But, no, I don't feel that's real too important. But it would be interesting to see. Just thought I'd mention that. You should also hear a lot about Shepard at this period in time, because it would be almost right after he saved the galaxy from the Reapers. So there should be memorials to him, people talking about him. Yeah, so there should be memorials and people talking about him in important locations such as Earth, the Citadel. The Quarians might have the New Normandy as a memorial, although I don't know how EDI would react to that, but that's an issue for BioWare. And also, Morton should probably have credit for curing the genophage or trying to cure the genophage, depending on what outcome you picked for that. So, yeah, so he should probably have a memorial on Tuchanka as well. So that would be interesting to see. Yeah. I think that's all I wanted to talk about for the characters. So yeah, they would probably have more cameo appearances and not actually full-on roles to play in this upcoming Mass Effect. Basically, what I'm getting at is this is as much as a final farewell to Shepard as it is a new story for a new character. I'm not saying it should be the farewell we should have gotten for Mass Effect 3, because I feel like we got that in a proper way for the extended cuts. Because you can't fix what players have to understand is that even though we have the extended cuts, BioWare is just not going to change every little detail for each and every choice made for the series. That would just be too difficult for the amount of stuff that was just in Mass Effect 3. You had to build your army, go out to different places. I was happy and quite surprised we got different reactions for the ending of Mass Effect 2. I was happy about that, and I was surprised by it also, because there was just a lot to do for the endings of Mass Effect 2. Like, if you didn't go onto loyalty missions, your characters would die, but if you got Legion early, then certain crew members on the Collector base would die. And then if you didn't survive with at least 2 party members, then Shepard would die. So that was just a lot for them to deal with. And imagine of doing that for the amount of military assets you gained for each partnership you made. That would be even more complicated, take more time, and just be so overwhelmingly difficult to do that I'm happy that they finished it in the way that they did for making the mistake of that craptastic original ending. So I am happy about that. I am basically satisfied with the ending of Mass Effect 3. This next game should be basically the final homage, farewell for Shepard and his team for the Mass Effect series, in as much and more importantly a new post-storyline of After Shepard in the reconstruction portion of the timeline. So that would be nice of them to show us, to see, while taking into account some of the decisions you made, so specifically the endings you made for Mass Effect 3, and specifically if you cured the genophage or not. Because we all know the Krogan survived based on the endings of Mass Effect 3. They survived the genophage, and they basically started to cure themselves after many, not generations, but after a long period of time. So they would survive regardless if the genophage was there or not. But yeah, those two decisions should definitely be taken into account as in memorial purposes for Morton and Shepard, and the world textures. If you see Geth, AIs similar to EDI and the Reapers, and the textures of the individuals for the control or synthesis ending. Of course, synthetics would have the blue light if you choose control, and synthesis would everyone has the green glowing bioorganic circuit boards on them. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Then I just kind of want to throw this out there that this character might be on a ship or a flotilla similar to how the Quarians were moving about prior to them either being killed by the Geth or making peace with the Geth or destroying the Geth. So yeah, that choice should also be taken into account for this next post-Shepard Mass Effect, because that would also change the balance of the galaxy as a whole, depending on the choice you make. So yeah, just want to add that in before I moved on. So anyway, as I was saying, this character might be on a ship or a flotilla of people who would be similar to him, as in maybe genetic modified people, clones, people who've been altered, genetic experiments, people who's been mutated, not like Reaper mutated, but mutated to where they would not be totally be accepted into society. Basically, a flotilla of virtually weaponized persons. Not as big as the Quarian flotilla was, but not as big as the Quarian flotilla was by no means. Or it could be just one ship with a couple hundred, 50 to a couple hundred people on it. That's entirely up to BioWare. I don't know what they're planning for the next Mass Effect is. I just want to throw this out there. So, yeah. And they would be pretty much hunted down by people similar to the Elusive Man, and organizations similar to what Cerberus was. Because these altered persons would be basically their investments and weapons for whatever purpose they want to make. Maybe these persons wanted to topple the Citadel and run the galaxy, but just couldn't because they don't have the weapons, the weaponized people that they need to do so, because they're on the run, flying on this ship or a flotilla of sorts. So I feel like that would be a fun and interesting storyline for this, and really fits into this world of Mass Effect because the Reapers did it, and Cerberus was kind of doing it with the Rachni. So, and yeah, Cerberus definitely did it with Jack, because I suspect that Jack was sent to the flotilla of the Quarians head as a test run on an attack due to Tali. And if you remember, Tali said this in the third Mass Effect, that Cerberus had sent a biotic to the flotilla as to the flotilla to attack it, and certain amount of people, of Quarians, died in that attack. She didn't confirm that this was Jack, but I suspect it was, or someone like her. But it's more likely Jack, because in Mass Effect 2, if you did her, spoiler alert, if you did her loyalty quest, none of what she remembered that happened to her was right for the place she was in. What I mean to say is that what she remembered didn't match what actually happened according to the records of what was there. So it is likely she was sent to the flotilla to attack the Quarians, then recaptured, and then escaped later on, and just equated the escape memory with, basically messed up the escape memory with the flotilla memories. So I feel like that's what really happened to Jack. And this new game should probably follow up that logical thinking, as in these altered people are on the run from whoever wants to get them back for the purposes of, for the like-minded, for their purposes, for basically organizations like Cerberus and people like the Elusive Man, and just want them back for their purposes. I think that would be an interesting plot line, and to see how the people on this new flotilla would react to one of their own being captured, because this would probably be a very tight-knit group of individuals, because they would be basically in the same circumstance and they would bond over that. So I think that's all I want to say about that. I think that would be really cool for BioWare to do. That also could be a later project, but I think that would really work for this next game. An anti-hero who basically a group of anti-heroes who are just trying their best to survive given the circumstances they are in. I also think that the Krogan from where you found Grunt, that clone Krogan of where you found Grunt, should also be in this game, because he's a clone and you actually never got to see what happened to him. So that would also be kind of an interesting story of how he survived after Mass Effect 2, if he survived at all. I know that's not an important character in the series, but it would be an interesting. For what he was. I felt he was an interesting change to what the Krogan are, and I thought he was a very cool character for the 3 minutes you talked to him, and for who and what he was, and how he was created, and how Grunt had respect for the failures of his creation. So I would like to see how those two would interact, Grunt and the failed Grunt from Mass Effect 2, when you actually went to go recruit Grunt. So that would be fun to see as well. But anyway, I think that's all I want to talk about. So please well, you don't have to subscribe because this is my first video. So please dislike, leave comments. Let me know if you agree, disagree, think anything needs changing, think this is interesting or not. But, leave comments and I would be eternally grateful. Thank you. Bye.